Hi everyone and welcome. Thanks very much for coming along to our second webinar in our session for our Maintenance Month campaign. My name is Peter Ball and I'm your host for today. I'm an Aviation Safety Advisor and I'm based in Darwin for CASA, Civil Aviation Safety Authority. My guest speaker for today is Sheridan Austin. Sheridan is the Managing Director of Aviation Quality and Management Services, providing quality and safety solutions to aviation organisations. Sheridan, thanks for your time and participating in the session today.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks. It's nice to do this with you and also to see all these names coming up of people that we know and people we don't yet know.
Yes, lots of familiar names in there, that's for sure. All right, quick outline for the session is to talk all things apprentices. Things such as induction to the organisation and to the workplace, supervision, mentoring, staying on track with practical and theory aspects, access to theory and training and examinations, and some common misunderstandings. As you can see in the comments section there, our assistant is posting some links to websites and related platforms. So yeah, just follow along with those and you can have a look at them. And that's where we want you to put your questions in as well. All right, so we'll jump right in. Sheridan, do you want to just give us a bit of an introduction to your role and your background?
Yeah, thanks, Pete. And thanks again for inviting me to participate here. I've been in aviation now for 28 years. Good, show my age. 28 years. I had the privilege of working with Peter Ball back at National Jet in Darwin. If not for Pete and encouraging me to participate and get involved in all things engineering, I certainly wouldn't be sitting here today. Pete was my very first senior base engineer and taught me so many things about not only aircraft, but maintenance planning and also how to have a happy and healthy workplace as well. So from my humble beginnings of working with Pete and our team in engineering, I moved on to quality and safety. It was a bit of fate actually, and I really didn't want to do that because nobody likes the quality and safety people, and I just was scared I wasn't going to have any friends. But anyway, here I am. I started my business in 2009, Aviation QMS, when I found that a lot of people didn't actually understand, particularly in engineering, how the law works. As engineers, we just get on, we make it happen, and we just do things. But we knew that Part 145 and Part 42, and therefore Part 66 and 147 was coming on board. So I started my business to be able to help people to interpret the law and to apply that in their workplace. I'm lucky enough to have had a very successful role with the industry and have helped many in organisation from a not only an individual perspective but also from a company perspective for understanding that. In recent years, I've had a very much a passion for all things apprentices and aviation and the lamey shortage. As we all know, there is a lamey shortage. We call it a crisis because it is actually a crisis. So I participate in CASA technical working groups as well and do everything that I can to encourage people to understand and also to grow their own apprentices.
Thanks, Sheridan. A bit of background on me, raised in an aviation family, basically spent my whole life in aviation, but I served an engineering apprenticeship from 1982 to 86. And I was a practicing lamey from 1987 through to 2008 and been with CASA since. Look, I had lots of challenges through my apprenticeship, but I was also very privileged as well, had lots of benefits in there as well. So a bit of background about that. Had a couple of different employers throughout my apprenticeship because the first one went into administration, so that was challenging in lots of ways. My second employer, which I was very privileged to have me put on, was fantastic at developing me as an aircraft engineer, a team member, and as a human being as well. I also had to change technical schools halfway through my training, but anyway, I managed to come out the other end and gain a license and went on from there. There were some great times through there as well, and I've just neglected to put up one of those. I'll see if I can find a photo for you later. But yeah, there was some really good trips out into the bush and lots of great experiences along the way. And thank you for those kind words, Sheridan. Yes, you were always a pleasure to work with. All right, well, let's dive into the topic at hand. Now we've done our intros. So I'm going to pose a few questions as we go along. One of the things that I do a lot in my role is help people understand change. So change is inevitable. It is going to happen as we go through our lives and our careers. So we'll talk a bit about some of those challenges of change that come along. But I thought I might just start by asking Sheridan, why would someone put an apprentice on? What are the benefits?
In short, if we don't, our industry that's already in crisis is going to go further into crisis. It's the only way forward. So that's really the long and short of it. But there are other things to employing an apprentice. It's to pass on the knowledge. We've got a lot of really experienced engineers that are excellent teachers, and it's incumbent upon them, I think, to be able to pass that knowledge through for the future generations of not only our future engineers, but also the survival of aviation itself. We look around and we see aircraft being grounded all over the shop, and it's at times due to lack of engineering. So that apprentice pathway is a really critical piece about why people should put apprentices on.
Absolutely, because in a nutshell, the apprentice of today is the Lamy of the future, and we all had to start somewhere. And we were, a first day apprentice is not going to be much benefit in the hangar, but it all comes down to having the right induction, having the guidance, support, mentoring, obviously supervision. And an apprentice can actually start contributing to the team output in a reasonably short period of time. But there needs to be a clear plan in place. You can't just kind of roll along and hope that it all works out, or worse, expect the apprentice to figure it all out on their own. Developing an apprentice, it's a team effort. And between the employer, the apprentice, the state training authority, the maintenance training organisation, and other parties as required. So I thought I'll just jump in here with a quick photo and a quick little ditty. So this is one of the highlights from my days as an apprentice. My boss took me out to a cattle station out the end of the WA NT border to fit an engine to this 172 and do 100 hourly on it out there. And shortly after we commenced work, as you can see, we used a pole on the cattle truck there to put the engine in. And shortly after we got going, we got a tropical downpour, and lots of rain and wind. We're hanging on to cows and things like that. Not my best angle, but you can see there it's not a great production for work health and safety. You can see there I've got no shoes on, ankle deep in mud, but one of those character building type activities, and really the whole trip was a pleasure. So there is good things along with some of the other challenges that come to pass. So following on from what I just said, so where and when an apprentice obtains their technical training really largely depends on the state training model, the funds available, the level of training available, and it might be a certificate 4 or it could be diploma level. But if it is certificate 4 level, needs to be awareness from all parties on day one that a Cert 4 alone will not result in a licence outcome. Either the apprentice or the employer, they'll need to have a plan to undertake studies to a diploma level, or perhaps go down the CASA self-study pathway to ensure a licence outcome is achieved in a reasonable time frame post the apprenticeship completion. So look, regardless of which pathway is followed, the matter of practical experience needs to be also contemplated. It's possible that not all practical competencies are available to be completed within their employer. For example, if that employer maintains a small piston-powered helicopters, aspects such as pressurization, air conditioning, hydraulics, landing gear, all those sort of practical requirements might be difficult to obtain. Historically, some of these aspects can be covered in a Part 147 maintenance training organisation as simulated, or perhaps by temporarily working for another employer who can provide exposure to these aspects. Obviously, things have changed a little bit now. Some of these specific issues have an option now through CASA's introduction of the modular licence. However, with that, some people, some employers, some apprentices might elect to say, no, I'm still going to go down the path to get a full license straight up with no exclusions. That's a personal choice and a professional choice as well. But certainly having a clear picture from the outset as to what the goals are, what the timeframes are, where the practical and where the theoretical training is going to come from, certainly needs to be considered at the outset. So, Sheridan, any comments on what I've said?
Yeah, the modular licensing thing is something that we've worked very hard for, and credit to Pip Spence, the DAS of CASA, and her team for getting that through. We have talked about it for many years. I'm sure many of you on this call have heard us talk about it for a long time. To test my patience, I guess it did take longer than what we had hoped it would take, but it has been now, it's now an option that's available. And basically what Pete was saying is correct. It's for those organisations that are running 44s, 66s or 210s, you know, pressurized aircraft or non-type rated aircraft. It just enables your apprentice to get a license, a modular license sooner. So for those from the old Car 31, basically we're just reverse engineering, if you like, back to having a license telling you there's things that you can't do. Not all the things you have to do, because it won't be practical in all circumstances. And the other day or last week, Pete, you guys did a webinar similar to this?
Yeah, so if you have a look in the comments section there, you can see our assistants posted the link to the modular, the myth-busting modular licensing webinar we did last week. So that's available as a recording, as this session will be as well. So if you want a bit more information, have a look at that YouTube video on our CASA briefing channel as well. Excellent. Okay, and thanks for that, Sheridan. So let's go back to the start, I suppose. Where do I find an apprentice? If I decide I want to put an apprentice on, where do I find one?
So I've got my little slideshow, if you'd like me to share that.
Oh, well, let's cut to that. Go ahead.
Shall I do that?
Yeah.
Thank you. Now, I'm not very good at this, so please be patient with me while I see how clever I can be. How did I go?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, just go full screen and take a second, we'll be good.
I think it takes a little bit on your, oops, I've gone a bit ahead of myself here, sorry.
It's okay. Also in the comments section there, you can see there's a link to the maintenance engineers landing page on the CASA website. And also I'll give a plug to the Aviation Maintenance Technicians Day a bit later too. So if you're ready, Sheridan, away for you go.
Thank you. And that's a great option. I know that in engineering for many, many years, we've said, oh, you know, the pilots get everything, engineers get nothing. But again, to CASA's credit, they are. We've got the Maintenance Matters newsletter every month. We've got the as Pete said, the landing page now. So I encourage everyone to go and have a look there as well and take the time to read it. There's some really good articles in there. I'm not sure everyone that's on our audience here today, so I thought I'd take a bit of a step back to look at this current state of play, and this will help people that have been around aviation for a long time just to put into perspective where we're up to. Look, we're on a time limit. I can talk about this stuff all day. I promise you I won't, but I'll just get through. If there's any questions later, as Peter said, post them in and we can come back to you as well. I'd like to start out by saying again that apprentices are our future. I'll share the proof to you about this in just a moment. So here's, oh, sorry. More than ever, we're feeling the LAME shortage crisis, and that's from the regional areas all the way through to the cities. Money isn't even talking anymore. So back to my point that we really need to grow our engineers. And here's the stats, which I think everyone will find really interesting. I got these stats out of the pleasure of reading the CASA annual briefs from 2006 right up until the end of the financial year last year. I won't read them to you. I'll give everyone a moment just to have a read of them. So as you can see there, there's been a decline. Interestingly, the decline started in 2016, which was 4 years after the licensing change. And that's when everyone said, oh, well, we've just done our 4-year apprenticeship. Why can't I get a license? And we all know the reasons, the challenges behind that and the misinterpretation. So you can see the decline. Unfortunately, because the licenses are now a perpetual license, we don't even know how many people are actually exercising the privilege of their license. But if I was a betting person, I'd be betting on the fact that attrition is more than 128 of the LAME licenses that we issued last year. I think this is a real stark reality, and I think that it's something, again, that you guys should take on board when considering whether or not to take on an apprentice. What's currently the best option? So from experience, we know that, again, whilst there's some challenges with employing apprentices, it is the best way. I know a lot of organisations recently have tried international recruits. They are short term. There has been lots of issues. And in fact, I wish I was writing a thesis on this, because there's been lots of issues in regard to assimilation or people just not understanding the Australian system, not being able to get on board. So again, from that, if you do have a good international recruit, and of course there are many of them as well, the future really is in that apprentice space. Lots of people that I talk to say, "Oh, Sheridan, it's just too hard. It used to be so much easier in the old world, in the Car 31 world, in the old system." But really, once you understand it, it really is an easy way to get someone licensed. And I'll get more to that in a minute. So what can you do? As Pete mentioned earlier, we can educate, we can go to careers counsellors at the schools, we can participate in careers expos, we can encourage your current apprentices to do well, we can encourage them to get their mates on board as well to join. Obviously there's a bit tricky with getting people with the correct mechanical aptitude, but as Pete also said earlier, we need to grow our own and teach them as well. It really is going to be the short-term pain for the long-term gain. I'm just going to do a little bit of not a plug as such. Not last year, the year before, on behalf of the RAAA, I wrote a paper about the LAME shortage crisis and the opportunities. So that's actually been read in many places around the world, and other organisations or other countries have actually taken some of our recommendations on board. So for those that are interested, there's the QR code, and it just talks about, the issues we've had while we got here and how we can move forward. So these are the current pathways. Pete, before I go on to the pathways, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
No, please continue.
Oh, thank you. So there is, as I said earlier, there's a lot of information, and I won't make it complicated. It seems complicated, but as I said, once you know how to read and understand the pathways, because there's many pathways, it is an easy thing. So today there are so many flexible pathways of employing emerging aircraft engineers, and it's like we've never seen before. And I will go through them in brief. I'll keep it fairly high end, but I'll go through them in brief over the next few slides. You can have somebody who's at school doing the VETAS program, which is vocational education training in school, or the SBAT, which is a school-based training. There's so many government, state government and federal funded of things that are available as well these days. So it's a matter of understanding them and getting good bang for buck as well. For those who aren't in the industry that may be on this call today, aspiring aircraft engineers, welcome. And here's just some terminology for you. You will hear as you're exploring your future pathway. So an AME, is pronounced Amy, is an aircraft maintenance engineer, and that's someone who's not licensed. We've got a category A, line maintenance certifying engineer, which means that they can do certain tasks. For those of us that are familiar with the car regulations, that's sort of like the Schedule 8 stuff. That's generally what's included there. We have a B1 aircraft maintenance engineer, so they're mechanical and they're licensed, and we have a B2, which is an avionics licensed engineer. Category C is not really relevant for here, but that's a requirement if you're going to release large aircraft from base maintenance. So to keep it fairly high end, we've got in the LAME category, we've got two. One is a B1 mechanical and one is B2 avionics. For any aspiring LAMEs that may be on here today, mechanical is good for you if you've got that good mechanical aptitude. You need to see, touch and feel. Avionics is ones that are, you're good with the electrical stuff, you're good with the radio, good with the instrument stuff, that you can diagnose things without actually sometimes seeing, touching and feeling. So here's all the employment streams, which I think is really good for those that don't quite understand how we actually get people to this point. Qualifications available under the B1 category, so that's the mechanical. You can do a Cert 2 in aircraft line maintenance. You can do a Cert 2 in aero skills, a Cert 4 in aero skills. Now, just as a little note there, for those that have been around a while, in the initial change, everybody did a Cert 4 because that's what we were told to do. The Cert 4 was chosen because the diploma didn't have funding at the time. However, people did their Cert 4, almost a traditional 4-year apprenticeship, and at the end of it discovered that they didn't get a licence outcome. Through lots of hard work, through many organisations, the Diploma of Aero Skills, which does give the licence outcome, is now funded around all states and territories in Australia. B2 is similar, however, there isn't the Cert 2, so you can either have a Cert 4 or a diploma in Aero Skills as well. So a lot of people get not overwhelmed, but a little bit confused about the process now for an apprentice. But like I said earlier, it's easier than ever. So once you've picked that perfect apprentice, you need to employ them. You register with an Australian apprenticeship support network provider. These are the guys that also help you navigate your way through funding, and you nominate a training organisation to deliver that training. So we all know of Aviation Australia. They're familiar to us all, and they are able to take that training, do a training plan, and then to deliver that training. There's others around as well. And from there, it's basically just follow the bouncing ball to the end of the apprenticeship. Of course, in the workplace, we need to help and nurture and grow and help these apprentices to become lamies. But you've also always got the help of your training organisation and the AASN that you've nominated. So that's it in a nutshell. Like I said, I won't go too deep because there's a lot more information, but it really, I want to assure you, is a really easy undertaking to engage and put an apprentice through all the way through to getting them a licence as a lamie.
Thanks for summarising that, Sheridan. I appreciate it. I guess the other aspect here is to remember that nothing is easy. There'll be an overhead of time and effort required to get an apprentice started and progressed, but the effort you put in will be a measure of how successful their program will be. Needs to be, like I said, a clear plan for induction, discussion of expectations, and a plan for the entire time of the apprenticeship with clear goals and reviews along the way to make sure that you're sticking to the plan and that the plan might need to be adjusted as you go along. Continual reviews, regular reviews of theory and practical completions and progress, making sure that the apprentice is actually keeping their journal of experience up to date with anything that they might be able to put in there. There'll be the usual employer-employee challenges along the way, but that's the same for all employees. Look, we've touched a fair bit on the challenge of technical study. Can't be taken lightly. Good study habits are key, and combining this really needs to be a fairly reasonable level of high schooling in maths and physics. I've seen a lot of apprentices really struggle with the theory side of things. You get the rare apprentice that is really good with their hands and really good with the study, but usually they'll be good at one or the other. But certainly having a reasonable basis of high school maths and physics and things like that certainly helps. It's not that they won't be able to do it, but it certainly gives them a really good chance of a successful completion in a reasonable time frame. So what other issues might be out there? Really great if these people, these apprentices have a mentor. Usually that might be in the organisation, but not necessarily, other people that they can talk to. The regular technical training can be an impost on the employer when they're outside of an organisation, because that you've lost some of your workforce, and it can be on a fairly regular basis. Can't understate the good study habits though, and encouraging the apprentice to get them to put their hands up if they need some help. Okay, we've got a couple of questions here.
Can I just add something on that?
Go ahead, Sheridan, please.
Thank you. One of the themes that I hear, and it resonates all around the organisations that I go to, is that we're so understaffed, we haven't got time to spend with the apprentice. So again, back to how we used to run it, you normally had sort of 2, maybe 3 apprentices per lamie. We know that's not possible now, but even if you've got one apprentice per lamie, it's a good start. And if everybody did that, then we'd have a whole new, a continuous stream of apprentices and therefore lamies coming through as well.
Excellent. Thanks, Sheridan. All right, just we've got a question here. Can you go over, and it'll have to be brief, we'll probably go a little bit over time, but that's okay. Can you go over the Diploma of Aviation? How do we go about completing the diploma? You've already set the scene with the Cert 4.
Do you want me to take that one, Pete?
Yes, please.
Okay, so to do the diploma, as I said earlier, you just need to, well, not just, you need to obviously get an apprentice, engage your Australian Apprenticeship Support Network, and also decide on your trade school or your 147 organisation. In terms of actually conducting it, it's a matter of getting your Journal of Experience, your JOE, within the workplace, and also going to trade school to get your diploma. You can also do additional study, which is through the CASA self-study. So that means you don't go to trade school. There's still a journal that you have to fill out, but it's all self-study that you don't go to the classroom for. Does that help as a high end?
Yep, that's cool. So how much, say if I was going to a 147 and doing my diploma, how much of the diploma could I do remotely without having to go actually on site to the school?
Yeah, that's a good question actually, because every state and territory has different requirements as to how much face time you need to have, and also it depends on the actual 147 themselves. So as a general rule, and this is just experience that I've had working in the regional areas of Western Australia, the apprentice goes, now don't have a heart attack anyone here, but around 14 weeks a year to trade school, which can have a massive impact on production in the workplace. But now a lot of the All Good 147s are able to let the apprentices study from the remote location. It still means they're off the floor, but it means they're not traveling and away from home if they're actually having to travel. It's a
Okay.
case by case basis, but that's a bit of a guide for you.
All right. Got another question there. I'm just going to answer this question, then we'll start our conclusions. But don't stress, everyone. We will answer your questions via email. We've got your emails from your registration. So one aspect I just want to address, and someone's alluded to it in the comments there, is for an existing LAME looking to get another subcategory, or maybe a B1 to go to B2, and having to go and do some of the maths and physics type modules again. What everyone needs to remember is that someone like myself, a Car 31 LAME from years ago, whose license was transitioned into the Part 66 world, that was an authorization to certify the Car 31 license. It wasn't based on a qualification. So that's the difference. That's why you have to go down that path and jump through those hoops again. Even if you think, I'm a LAME, I've already got a license, why do I have to go back and do these basic modules? Again, under the Part 66 system, you have to build the foundation before you put anything on top there. All right, Sheridan, we're just about out of time. Would you like to add anything before I jump into the conclusion?
Well, no, apart from saying thank you again for the opportunity to talk about this thing that I'm passionate about. Thank you to everyone for attending, and please employ apprentices.
Excellent. I might just answer one more question there. Someone was talking about an issue in South Australia with no local training facilities, and Matt Costello's kindly responded there from our maintenance personnel licensing in Canberra that Cortex is now open to training facility in Adelaide with South Australian government assistance. So there's the answer to that one. All right, well, look, I'm going to wrap things up. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. Sheridan, thank you very much for your time and involvement in this. Really appreciated. And just a reminder, yes, we will respond to those questions that we haven't got to. You can see in the links there, the link is up to last week's webinar on modular licensing, and the next webinar is next week on Tuesday the 28th of May. There should be a link in the comments to that as well. We'll be chatting to Joshua Kilgore, one of our 2023 AME scholarship winners, and we'll hear from him how he's overcome the challenges from entering the industry and on his pathway toward becoming a LAME. Also a reminder there, as part of our maintenance month initiative, we've got a tool giveaway, and the link is also in the contents there as well. So thanks again, everyone. Stay safe out there, and as I always like to end with, do good work, and we'll see you at the next webinar. Thanks very much.
See you. Have a good day.